Greetings and welcome to the Rock and Roll podcast. Check out this record. My name is Mark, and with us as always is the Intercontinental Father of the Year. It's Frankie D.
Hey, Mark, I gladly accept this reward given by my man, Mark, and I look forward to receiving it next year as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Your friends have noticed your taste in music has suddenly become the only thing you want to talk about and keep telling you what a jerk you are because of it. I don't know. Hell yeah. Telling people the music they like sucks is your right. So tell those friends where to stick those Greta Van Fuckboy albums and make sure they check out this record. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, or wherever they might find the finest of podcasts. Heck, we're even on YouTube.
That's right. New episodes drip and drop directly to your ears every Friday. And of course, they're for your listening pleasure.
That's correct. For the uninitiated, welcome here on Check Out the Record. Check out this record. My goodness, this Gatorade's got me crunk. Frank and I go through albums track by track and tell you what we really think about them. But that's not all. Oh, no. We also have a wide array of musical discussions, like in our Spotlight series, where we'll dig into a band's catalog and see where we come out the other side.
That's right. Or like today in our Verse series, we're going to pit two albums against each other, and they're going to duke it out for something we like to call total stereo domination.
Now, if social media is your thing, and Mark Zoidberg told me it is, be sure to check us out on Instagram or my personal hell, Facebook. Where we have a group thingamajig or something like that. So mark yourself safe from shitty music and give us a like or a follow or whatever you're supposed to do on your phone when you're not looking at pornography.
Oh, absolutely right. And don't forget to pop on over to the world famous Tube of the U, where you can watch us make these silly faces. And we put the show together. Literally, we're going to put the show together. And who knows, we always talk about exclusive content, Mark, that people are not going to want to miss. But I promise when that comes out, you're not going to want to miss it. So be sure to fire off that subscribe button and like and all the good stuff. Right, Mark?
All right. Now that we've gotten all that out of the way, It's time for a battle royale of sorts. Two heavyweights of the punk rock scene, Richmond, Virginia's Avail versus Gainesville, Florida's Hot Water Music.
Wow, quite the slugfest indeed, Mark. Pound for pound, two of the heaviest hitters from the East Coast for sure. Tell me, how did these two come to climb in the ring with each other today and turning us really into two Michael Buffers?
Great question, Frank. Thanks for asking. Last week, I was fortunate enough to get to see both bands play together. Now, Hot Water Music has a new album on the way, Into the Void, and Avail just re-released their debut album, Satiate. I hadn't expected I'd ever get to see Avail play live, and you never know when Chuck Ragan won't be fishing. So I packed the car for a very long 2-hour road trip over to St. Pete. Both bands played their asses off, and it was great to be back at a big venue packed with people all having a great time. But leading up to the show, I was torn as to which albums to listen to leading up to it, and thought it might be a fun time to just kind of compare our favorite albums from each band, Frank.
Yeah, two very different bands that share really the same genre stylistically, but it's more to it. It's not just they're labeled punk bands. Hot Water Music with its two guitars and two lead vocal men, which almost spawns almost two different bands. And Avail, single guitar, single singer, and a cheerleader. They're the first band I knew of to have one of those. And have we mentioned their singer Tim Berry? I mean, he's just a towering figure that you can't help but notice in a good way. For all those things, I am pumped for this.
Oh, me too, brother. Why don't you give our listeners the lowdown, if you will, on Avail?
Sure, man. So Avail, definition, to help or benefit. I actually first caught wind of them on a mixtape that was made for me way back on 97, 98-ish. It was on a mixtape. So I do remember them. I forgot what song though. So I can't recall what song. The band, however, dates back to 1987 in Reston, Virginia. Guitar player Joe Banks was in Avail with other various members and teamed up with Tim Berry, who was in a band called Learning Disabled Kids. They moved to Richmond, Virginia in 1990. They released Statiate, what you just said, in 92 on Lookout Records. You might have heard of them before. In 94, we got Dixie. And in 96, we got the gut-wrenching 4 a.m. Friday.
Great record.
Yeah, gut wrenching.
Mhm.
Now,
Sorry.
many of the band's lyrics center around Richmond, which the band's cult-like status, is largely due to that authentic, hard-on-your-sleeve approach, which really places you in these stories of home that they are referring to. The band will further engulf us in the Richmond, Virginia lifestyle, Mark, with the album 1998's Over the James. On to you, Mark.
Yeah, so 1998's Over the James, the band's fourth studio album, originally released on Lookout Records, as Frank mentions, 14 original songs with themes of personal responsibility, isolation, depression, interpersonal relationships, and of course, the spirit of the James River.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be easy to just list off any of the songs and tell you that they're all amazing, because they are. But the heart of Avail has always been in the small details, from songs with one verse and chorus that repeat like a giant moshing hook that you just can't pull yourself away from, to these sweeping melodic parts that take the band from being simply a hard-hitting punk band into the realm of a god-tier post-hardcore band. Now, don't get me wrong, they're fast as hell and hit as hard as anyone willing to get on stage. I certainly have my favorites on the album: August, Scuffletown, Sanctuary 13. But like many, Lombardy Street was the first song I heard from Avail and Over the James, and it stuck with me in a way only a handful of songs ever have. Speaking to the lonely kid who was terrible at relationships and owning my role in them. It's a track I still hold very, very near and dear to my heart.
Oh, man. You crying?
Nope. Just
okay.
Just a little something in my eye. Many of us have heard the reissue of this bad boy, put out in 2008 by Jade Tree Records, which features an acoustic Lombardy Street. I love that they sell it as a straight acoustic cover for the first minute and a half plus, before bringing in the whole band, rocking it just right the fuck out. Also featuring Billy Joel's You Might Be Right, Elvis Presley's Suspicious Minds, as well as the lesser known but rocked just as hard cover of Embrace's Said Gun. For me, this album is damn near perfect, and it gets a 9.5 out of 10 from me. Frank?
Yeah. If you start at the beginning of Avail's catalog, you could see immense growth in Over the James. As you said, these songs are thundering fast and in a short time. However, where most bands in this style may not know how to write complete songs in a very short space, Avail manages to do so. Length aside, these songs become memorable anthems for living in a place where these members have they become that place at the end of the day. They're super aggressive, they're filled with passion, but that doesn't equate to a lack of melody and hooks. Then we have a track like Lombardy Street, as you mentioned, which is almost a foreshadowing of what's to come with Barry's solo work, especially that acoustic version. To me, that's the highlight of this record. It's such a perfect song with so many elements that you want out of something that just really displays authentic passion. Like you, Mark, this record's a 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah. Well, we're moving right along to our second contestant in this battle. Gainesville's Hot Water Music have never been known for pulling any punches themselves. The foursome has seen the world through the tour bus and stage, but who are they and how did they get here? Great question. The band features dueling, not really, guitars and lead singers Chris Wallard and Chuck Reagan, bassman Jason Black, and drummer George Rebello. Now, Reagan, Black, and Rebello all grew up in Sarasota, Florida. Black and Rebello played together in a jazz band in school. Reagan and Rebello met while working at eateries on the same street, with the corner becoming the frequent gathering place for Sarasota's musicians. As Wallard was based in Bradenton at the time, which is the town just north of Sarasota, Florida. For those of you not familiar with how the West Coast of the state works. Anyways, he met the other three at a storage facility, which frequently used as a rehearsal space between both Sarasota and Bradenton bands. I probably didn't need to tell you that it was just north of it, but whatever, you know now, so shut up.
It's a good visual. It's a good visual.
Frustrated by the lack of musical opportunities in their respective hometowns, Black recommended that the other three join him in Gainesville, a city known for its historic and contemporary music scene. Upon moving to Gainesville, the four joined together as Hot Water Music. The band's name was taken from a collection of short stories by Charles Bukowski. So that's how the name got there. It doesn't. It's not in Webster. I tried, Frank, but it wasn't there.
On a quick note, too, the professional golfer Dave Reagan is Chuck Reagan's father too. So that's.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. So that's something to note. So all right. So the band then releases their first record, 1997's "Feel for the Hate Game," great album. In '99, "No Division," great album, both on No Idea Records. In 2001, we see them move to Epitaph to release "A Fight and a Crash," great album. And in 2002, Mark, "Caution."
Great album.
Yeah, this record instantly takes your head off and kicks it with Reagan's bellowing vocals on a track like Remedy. If you want even more of an insight to Remedy, I suggest heading over to Krista Makes a Podcast from Less Than Jake to hear his interview with Reagan on the track. Track 2 gives us quite possibly Woolard's best pen tune and trusty chords. Although both singers have shard screeching vocals, we really are treated to two different styles. The album doesn't let up with "I Was on a Mountain," again by Woolard, and "One Step to Slip" by Reagan. After 4 tracks already, you could hear that the band totally took what they already elevated on the album Flight and a Crash, and they continue to progress it with intricate guitar work. Both guitars are rarely doing the same thing, and they leave a lot of open space for the other to complement. Now, the middle of the record gives us such goodies like "The Sense," "Not for Anyone," and "All Right for Now." And if you think the meat of this record exists on the top and in the middle, you're wrong, because we get to the last 3 tracks, and they're some of my personal favorites. The Odd Type signature of "We'll Say Anything We Want," it's a straight up punk tune, or is it? This is where the band that presents you such a mature style. They deliver you such a crock pot of spices, Mark, and they're also tasty. Wayfarer, Mark, is another highlight from Reagan, and although his voice is rougher of the two, it does blend in some nice melody to the tune. The end is a fitting closer, with Woolard and company giving us a very layered and complicated arrangement. Listen, this album for me, Mark, is flawless. I love every single track on here, with tracks such as "Trusty Chords," "I Was on a Mountain," "The End," "Wayfarer," "Remedy" being really life changers for me. Like "Over the James," guess what? This album's a 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah, this is one of those records for me that the more you sit down with it, the more it becomes like just part of me. It screams from your speakers, drawing you in with its hooks and heart. Frank's right. This thing rules. Another absolutely damn near perfect record. I agree with you. Wayfarer is one of my favorite songs from them. Remedy has only grown. Having heard Chuck talk about it. And "Trusty Chords," I mean, quite possibly the band's most recognized song.
Oh my God.
So yeah, 9.5 out of 10 for me as well.
This is tough, isn't this, Mark?
Comparing giant albums like this, we knew had a huge challenge on our hands, right? I don't know that there's going to be a clear winner here, right? We just scored them exactly the same.
Yeah.
Frank, when it comes to melodic hardcore, how is it two bands such as these can have such different structures and approaches to the music they made, but both can be so relatable and endearing?
I think what you have in Avail is a bunch of guys who like a variety of music, and their passion and experience from there come out and presents itself in this quick and aggressive version of hardcore. Although not folk in structure, you can make the case that these could be transposed to folk songs, especially with that Richmond, Virginia backdrop. Hot Water Music is none of this, though, and it's what I like to call, both bands are like, or what I like to call grown up, pull up your pants punk hardcore. or is it? Again, the reason why I keep saying or is it is because you have so much going on. These guys didn't come from punk backgrounds. In fact, most of them were metalheads, which is funny. Woolard, in fact, stated that he liked skateboarding, and when he moved to Gainesville, he just found himself hanging out with the punks, and he had no idea what it was all about. On the guitar side, it's not that they're hot water music now. It's not that they're using like these different chord progressions or any sort of different tunings, but somehow they are making them sound different, and that's probably with those four guys in that space at that time creating that music, and that's how it's coming out. I guess, Mark, your insight on these two styles that are different, but yet the bands are in the same community of music. What's your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, so I've always had kind of an interesting look at punk rock, right? And hardcore certainly spewed out of that. And I think both of these bands qualify as hardcore or post-hardcore or however you want to define it down. But if you look back at the early days of punk rock, it was really just based around the fact that people with no discernible genre needed a place to play. CBGBs happened to let them do that. And what grew out of it, Ramones, Television, Suicide, Talking Heads, Blondie, right? Patti Smith, it became this thing of kind of anyone who was outside of an otherwise known genre was then labeled punk, right? And then, of course, the punk movement kind of grew out of that, and most people just try to rip off the Ramones. But we see that later on, too, as we get into hardcore, things that don't necessarily fall into those same strict molds, those things that don't necessarily fit into one box or another, right? Neither Hot Water Music or Avail really fall into that 90s pop punk that came out, although they're arguably contemporaries with them, right? Avail being there as it got off the ground and Hot Water Music coming in towards the tail end of it. But clearly they're both still very punk rock, and they both still fit that classic definition of music that kind of fits in that rock mold, but doesn't have a defined genre. So it's really interesting as you think about what punk rock is. It's almost easier to think about what punk rock isn't as a way to define it. So it's an interesting thing, it's a trick. Frank, if you had to pick, do you think you could?
Yes, and I can pick a winner. Do you have a winner, by the way, just out of curiosity?
I mean, I'll tell you, sure.
All right. And you saw them live, so you could really, I think, cement that. Did you want to go first, or do you want me to? Either way.
Sure, I'll go first. So it's interesting because I saw them live and I felt like Avail had the better set. Right. Which seems odd because they obviously hadn't been playing as much as Hot Water Music. But I feel like they had a better set. But again, it was also the idea that I may have never seen them. So seeing them for the first time may have just simply been that much more. So I thought Avail was better that night live. Mm-hmm. That said, the more I've been listening to both albums, the more Caution has kind of seeped into me, and I'm leaning towards Caution.
Yeah.
Because while I still love Over the James, I still think it's absolutely cathartic as a record. It has all of these gigantic energy blasting moments, and it has these beautiful sweeping melodies, and these hooks that really pull you in. Caution, again, has just simply continued to grow and manifest itself in my mind. And I continue to find myself thinking about it more and looking at it. So for me today, it's Caution.
Yeah. So this was a hard one to think about too. And the only way I could conceptualize it enough to make logic about it was, hey, they're both two albums that we scored identical. So what I'm about to say doesn't put one over the other. It's just what has impacted me, maybe just slightly more. And I think that was the best way I could possibly look at it. And the choice is also Caution in my world. And I'll say why. Just because, well, listen, both bands were really eye openers when you first saw them visually, because there was not any flashy stuff. There weren't any hair dyes. That actually, me and you can make the case that we could be in one of those bands, but the way we look at the end of the day, and I'd always liked that. Right, there was such a relatability to these guys. Hot Water, though, again, I use the term, the grown up, mature version of punk, because it's something that if I were to start a band with you, of course, today, I would probably say, hey, let's try for something like that, right? The playing is just on a completely other level, and I think a lot of it has to do with again, the two guitars being able to feed off of each other, and also you get really two different experiences. I found Hot Water actually through Reagan's solo stuff first, and I was like, oh well, there's some other singer in the band, and as I started hearing Willard's songs, especially like Trusty Chords, the meaning behind it just elevates anyone feeling down, isolated, depressed, and ridden with anxiety. It was really, really impactful. So very tough call as of today. Like you, it's caution.
Excellent. I look, neither one of us have made this decision lightly.
Absolutely not.
Congratulations to Hot Water Music.
All
right. Well, Frank, it's game time.
Oh, well, 50%. Here I come, Mark.
Yeah. So for this week, folks, I have a really interesting game for Frank. We're going to play Strip. Where's that road? So I'm going to name a road, and you have to tell me if it's in Gainesville or in Richmond.
That's such a good game. Okay.
Are you ready?
I could do it. I think
I'm totally kidding. I have no game.
Oh, really?
I just thought it'd be fun to make that, like, yeah.
That's a damn good idea though for a game. Let me tell you.
I mean, every town's got a Harrison Street. Every town. I don't know. I just
sure. Well, all right. So the 50% is spared, basically, is what we're saying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, basically, you got 100% on that one.
Woo!
Wasn't that fun, Frank? What do you have for us next week?
So check this out, Mark. I'm going to piggyback off of. I was influenced by this episode and your choice of this episode, and I'm going to be able to relate it, and I'm going to piggyback it right now. So I'm going to show you the first record. It's another verse series, okay?
Oh,
and I think this fits very nicely. So after I show you the first record, you know what the second record's going to be. But the first record is we're going to pit.
Oh, we're going to do Chuck Ragan's Feast or Famine.
We're going to do Chuck Ragan's debut solo record, Feast or Famine, which I believe you got me this, Mark, way back in the day. By the way, me and Mark were on, even though Mark's vinyl collection is way more massive than mine.
Oh, come on now.
Me and Mark were buying vinyl in the mid 2000s, way before the whole craze began. So
began again. Yeah. And for what it's worth, Frank's kid collection is way bigger than mine.
Oh, totally. Absolutely.
Yeah. So in case you're wondering why I spend more money on records than he does.
And the second album, Mark, to no surprise, is...
Oh, we're going to do Tim Berry's Riviera Junction.
That's right. So we got two debut...
Did I say it right? Is it Riviera?
I think it's Rivanna Junction, right?
We'll figure it out by next week.
Yeah, I hope to have the pronunciation correct. But so... Again, I always knew of Hot Water Music, but I found them through Reagan's solo stuff, because it was around that time, Mark, as you know, where, we were trying to venture into other stuff here. And I was like, oh, wow, all these lead singers are, Mike Ness did it in 1999, but all these lead singers of the bands we like are starting to do their own solo stuff with acoustic guitars and harmonicas and folk and all that. So it's pretty cool. So I found Reagan, and then I believe you were the one who then turned me on to Tim Berry's solo stuff. And those are two really, really great albums. A lot of parallels, also a lot of differences though. And I think since we already did Avail and Hot Water Music, hey, let's do the solo records and let's see how we feel from there.
Most definitely. I am looking forward to it, my friend.
Cool, man. Cool. Well, I think it's going to be a good time, Mark. And in ways that make us feel good.
Oh man, let's duet.
Yeah, let's duet.
I wrote that joke and I wasn't sure what you were making reference to.
It's all good. It's all good. So thanks everyone for joining us today, kids. Remember, like, subscribe, rate, review, and most importantly, be safe out there. And even more importantly, be excellent to each other. Stay tuned.
We really do want you to be safe out there. Thanks as always for hearing us out. And won't you say it with me now? Oh my. Oh hell yes. Oh, bye.
Woohoo! I need
Franco is good.
I need a remedy.